Most companies think cybersecurity is about tools. In reality, the biggest financial risk today might not be the breach. It's the insurance claim that gets denied after the breach a lot of times. So today we're talking with someone who lives right at that intersection of cybersecurity, MSPs, and cyber insurance economics. Nick Wolf has spent over a decade in the IT channel, from the early days at Datto to cybersecurity startups, now Cork, where he works with managed service providers on a cyber warranties and risk intelligence. Nick, thank you for joining us and welcome to the vault.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. Appreciate it.
Awesome. So we caught up a little bit and I think you have a very fascinating career story. Look, you started in the MSP ecosystem very early. You have quite a number of experiences. Were you involved with Datto when the company was still very small?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was their 16th employee when I finally, joined them, which in my mind, because I was like 18 or 19 at the time, sounded like a huge organization. My first experience with data was actually when I was around 15 or 16 years old. I was in the high school technology club, and Austin McCord, the founder of Datto, came back to the high school club on like alumni day, and he's like, "Hey, I'm starting this company. It's called Datto. It does backups." And he gave me and a bunch of the kids in the club like the very first data device to, test out and experiment with. So that was really my first taste of working with technology that could impact the MSP space. And by the time I was done with high school and in college, ready for an internship, that's the first organization that came to mind.
I love it. These programs are extremely helpful to make sure that grads know what they're getting into, in a very complex world. So I love to hear stories like that. So how did it feel from watching Datto go from, startup to global platform?
It was truly a Cinderella story, going from 16 employees to 2,000 employees in 5, 6 years. It's something that's rarely repeatable. It was one of Connecticut's first and only unicorn businesses, which is a private business valued at over $1 billion. But going through it at the time, like it was business as usual for me because I had no other experience, right? So I just thought this was, yeah, business as usual growing from 16 employees to 2,000. But having moved on from Datto and been at a couple startups since then, I know that that's not the case anymore. That is, extremely fortunate to be a part of.
Yeah, yeah, sounds like it. I mean, in that kind of an environment with things flying, around so quickly, wearing multiple hats, I mean, you absorb everything earlier in your career and you really take it forward in ways that you don't even know a lot of times, right? So, I mean, in your mind, I mean, how did that experience teach you about how the MSP ecosystem actually works?
Yeah, so for me, it was about being comfortable with being uncomfortable because when you're growing at that scale, the company is basically doubling in size every 6 months. And a lot of that is due to reaction of what the MSPs want and need, right? We started off as just a backup and disaster recovery company during the early years of Datto. And, based on the feedback of what MSPs wanted and needed, we quickly expand via acquisitions or internal growth to protecting SaaS backup, remote monitoring and management, endpoint detection, professional services automations. And one of the reasons why I like working with MSPs is it's a blessing and a curse. If they like you, they're going to let you know and sing your praises. And if they don't like you, believe me, they're going to let you know as well, whether it's on Facebook or on the MSP subreddit. But for me, even in my current capacity of Cork, as much as I love dealing with our customers that love us, I equally love the customers that hate us because that's an opportunity for us to do better, us to improve. And luckily, we have low churn here at Cork, but even that minimal churn that we do come across, that's a learning experience for us and the entire organization for us to do better in the future.
I love it. And Nick, you talk about low churn, the ability to really care about your customers, whether or not they're happy or not, right? That's super important. Why are MSP communities in general so loyal, relationship driven? I'd say above, general tech markets. Why would you say that is?
Yeah, well, we're not, typically with vendors in the MSP space, you're not protecting Wall Street. You're protecting Main Street. You're protecting small business customers. A lot of MSPs, they know their customers very intimately. An MSP might only be 5 or 10 employees, and the organizations they serve are, again, small businesses, 5, 10, 20 employees. Whereas if you were selling to enterprise organizations where the employee is 1 out of 50,000, that message and that personal touch, might get lost along the way. So again, one of the reasons why I work in the MSP space is it's very niche. I'm not selling a product here, I'm selling a partnership here, right? Which is why I've been extremely fortunate and blessed that several MSPs have followed me along the way of my journey when I switched companies, right? I was at Datto for about 10 years. And then when I moved on from Datto to a company called Scout, which was an XDR vendor that got acquired by Barracuda Networks, a lot of people joined me because they were like, hey, Nick, you didn't steer us wrong in the early days of Datto. Datto turned out to be amazing. Let's buy this new thing called Scout because they trusted me and the product that I was representing. And, that experience has really followed me along my entire career. Even now that I'm at Cork, I still have some of my former Datto customers from 5 years ago, my former Scout customers from 4 years ago. Hit me up saying, hey, you didn't steer me wrong in the past. If you join this new organization, it got to be doing something cool for the MSP space, so let's hop on a demo or just have a quick call to see what this new product or service is all about.
Yeah, yeah. And look, a lot of times we fall, especially in this like, innovative new sprawl release that we've been seeing consistently over the past few weeks, especially, right? It gets easy to get lost in the tools and the architecture. Um, and what you're saying, and I agree completely, is at the end of the day, the human is the fallback. And as long as you care and you'll figure it out and you'll work through things, that's going to make the difference at the end of the day.
100%. One of my favorite mottos at Datto, and this came straight from the CEO, Austin Cord, was do what's right, not what's profitable. So if that means we had to delay billing or give a free month of credit because, we dropped the ball in support or the product failed over here, and that's really a message that's resonated with me throughout my entire career, beyond just Datto, of always do what's right, not necessarily what's profitable.
Yeah, yeah, well said. And look, I mean, in terms of the evolution of MSPs, talking a bit about what you're seeing in the industry today, a lot of the outcomes were on IT management, right? And keeping the lights on, ensuring consistency in some kind of technology roadmap to deliver some outcomes. I believe that MSPs are more expected now to deliver real cybersecurity outcomes versus IT management, right? So why are MSPs evolving into MSSPs, right? Managed security providers. What's your view of that trend today?
Yeah, it's all about being proactive as opposed to reactive. Back in the day, let's rewind the clock 10 or 15 years, a lot of these before MSSPs and before MSPs, a lot of these guys were break fix shops, right? Something would go wrong, they would come on site and, fix it. But for me personally, my favorite mechanic is a mechanic that keeps my car running properly, where I don't have to bring it into the shop, right? Every 6 months to get something fixed. It just naturally works fine. So that's where MSPs began the shift of going from that break fix model of, oh, bring the car to the shop every 6 months and I'll fix it when it breaks, to let's set it up for long term. So you could go on that road trip and the car isn't going to break down. You're running solid. So, MSPs, the original concept was, let's do RMM and antivirus and backup, to get yourself, secured. But as more MSPs began shifting to the MSSP model, it's more of a security first mindset of 24/7 SOC services, MDR, XDR services, really to stay ahead of the curve, which
Yeah,
obviously ties into cyber insurance, right? You want to make sure that all these right tools and services are in place. That way, if an attack does happen, there's financial security in place to get the client up and running and recovered. Because at the end of the day, no matter how proactive the MSSP is, there's not a single product or service that could say, hey, you use this one product, you use this one service, you'll never get an attack. Because, unfortunately, there's no silver bullet like that. The bad guys are just too creative. There's always going to be something new, something malicious that could slip through even the best cybersecurity defenses. But obviously, if you have an MSSP in place and they're being proactive, it's going to lower that outcome substantially from you getting impacted. But there's nothing that's going to 100% block the bad guys.
yeah, yeah. We have a duty to be real at the end of the day, right? Not set expectations beyond what is actually capable of the technology. So absolutely agree, Nick. And to that point, you're talking XDR, endpoint, a lot of these elements within an infrastructure can get complicated. I mean, what are you seeing in terms of security gaps most often with, say, SMB and mid-market today?
Yeah, so I would say one of the big things is like drifts in configurations. All right. You might have MFA turned on today. You might have EDR installed today. Backups might be running today when you're getting that cyber insurance application and you're filling out all those questions. But over a year time frame, a lot could happen. Users could come and go. Your MSP might change out the EDR tool that they're leveraging or the backup tool that's leveraging, and things might get bumped and missed. That's one of the things that I kind of like about Cork and how we're helping MSP solve that problem is we're kind of a security tool for the security tools because we make sure that everything is installed where it should be installed and nothing is still remaining where it shouldn't be running anymore. Maybe it's an old product or tool that, hey, this EDR tool, you're still paying for it, even though it hasn't been turned on in, 3 months. You might want to get rid of that. So I
Yeah,
will leave
yeah.
it in with the
I love it. Back to the basics. And I mean, to that point, where do you think MSPs are still underestimating risk in your perspective?
Yeah, that's a great question. At the end of the day, it's human error, for sure. Especially with procedures. So, like, selfish plug here with Cork. Again, we integrate with over 100 pieces of technology that MSPs use, from RMM to EDR to backup and MFA. And a lot of MSPs out there, they have really great security teams. We deal with MSPs that have one employee all the way up to 100 plus employees. But it doesn't matter how big or small your team is and how well documented your processes is, human error is always going to exist. There's always going to be something that slips through the crack where it might slip the offboarding or onboarding engineer's mind where it's, oh shoot, I can't believe that I forgot that this batch of users had MFA turned off or MFA was in bypass mode for 3 months. I can't believe that I forgot to install, Sentinel One EDR on these three machines, but my RMM is installed on all those machines, but for whatever reason, the EDR never got onto that machine. So I would say human error is the biggest, distraction both for MSPs as well as the clients of the MSPs, right? That's how the bad guys get in. It's because of a user clicking on that link that they shouldn't have clicked on and getting scammed out of the phishing attack or downloading something that they shouldn't download. Yeah, so human
Yeah.
error on both sides of the fence.
Yeah, and that's where obviously education, cyber culture is critical, right? Getting the right behaviors in place, getting the right, but even then, it's actually acting in what's best for the company. It becomes challenging. It's a habit. You have to learn it. But that's where things in your industry, I'm sure, get very, very interesting. I forget the stat, but it was well above 80%. The majority of breaches happen because of an internal breakdown of some sort, to your point,
Yeah.
right? So definitely a massive, massive area we could focus on. And look, I think where I'm going with this now, a lot of organizations are subscribing to cyber insurance and looking to that to protect them overall. A lot of claims are denied because of security posture issues or incorrect questionnaires or some kind of internal policy blunder that was overseen. I mean, what do you see in terms of like where are the cyber insurance claims getting denied today?
Yeah, so our research shows that about a third of cyber insurance claims get denied, and it often comes down to that insurance questionnaire and the lack of the proper technology being set up. So, like, typically with a cyber insurance questionnaire, it gets filled out once a year. But even though you're filling out that questionnaire, and even if it's 100% correct today, it doesn't mean that changes aren't going to happen in the client's environment a couple months from now that would void out that policy. Like, probably the biggest thing that we see deny a cyber insurance claim is going to be MFA. Typically, MFA needs to be turned on for all users within an organization, not just Mary in accounting, not just Bob in sales. Everybody from Joe the janitor to Chris the CEO, everybody has to have MFA turned on. So when you're filling out that cyber insurance questionnaire saying yes, MFA is turned on, it's MFA is not just turned on for one person, it's turned on for the entire organization. And oftentimes they'll use that to say, hey, when we sold you that insurance policy in January, you said you filled out the form, you said MFA was turned on for everybody, but when you got hit by an attack in March, Marty over in accounting, he had MFA turned off. As a result, we're not paying out your claim or we're not paying out a portion of your claim. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, a third, I mean, those numbers, those stats speak for themselves. I mean, what mistakes other than that, like with the MFA potentially and the changes in the environment, what mistakes do companies make when they're filling out the questionnaire? Because that seems like the beginning, right?
Well, it goes back down to human error, right? Whenever you get a human involved, humans suck. myself included, right? Whenever a human is involved, and this isn't a rant about AI taking over the world or anything like that, but when humans do get involved, it opens the opportunity for error, right? You might have checked yes on that checkbox when you should have checked no on that checkbox for the questionnaire. So that's why you might see more companies like Cork or others in the future that automate that process. For us, for example, we don't do cyber insurance questionnaires anymore. We actually tie into the tools. So we get tangible proof from the RMM, the EDR, the backup, the MFA to actually have tangible proof that those services are running, as opposed to taking a human's word for it via checkbox that yes, backups are running. Yes, MFA is installed. No, we want to tie in directly with those vendors using an API connection.
Yeah, yeah, makes sense. And look back to the point on education and behavior, right? And getting the right. I mean, we're human, right? So we're susceptible to that error. I mean, if a company had like 1 hour to improve its chances of approval on security, what would they fix first?
Yeah, MFA. MFA all day, every day. I mean, users are the weakest link. Don't get me wrong. MFA being turned on won't stop 100% of your attacks because nothing will stop 100% of your attacks. But if you turn on MFA, I think that's going to solve like over 99% of your problems, just by having MFA turned on.
Yeah, and how does Cork educate their customers? I mean, how does basically like speaking to the importance of education, especially in cyber risk before something happens. I mean, how's Cork kind of using education within their process?
Yeah, so for us, what we do is we audit the client's environment or the MSP's environment and educate them that, hey, you have a lot of awesome tools turned on in this client's environment, but this client, they have 45 endpoints. 45 endpoints are on RMM, but only 40 of them have backups running. Only 43 of them have EDR installed. This client has 72 users within their environment. 72 users have email security turned on, but only 70 of them have MFA turned on. Only 65 of those users passed their security awareness training recently. So by being able to tie into all the security tools that a typical MSP or MSSP will sell to their clients, we could gather all that information under one roof and educate the clients or the MSPs themselves of, hey, these are the things that are slipping through the cracks.
I love it. So very specific to their purpose, their outcomes, their business priorities, more importantly. So
Yep.
makes
It's
perfect
us
sense.
basically saying, yeah, you installed one heck of a security door in the backyard, but you forgot to lock it. Right. So let's go ahead and lock that door instead of just leaving it wide open.
Yeah, absolutely. And now there's a new category, right? Cyber warranties. Many execs don't understand the difference. Can you tell us a little bit about that the difference or what is a cyber warranty?
Yeah, so it goes by a few names now. We used to call it a cyber warranty. Some of our MSPs call it a cyber guarantee. You'll see some of our updated branding. We call it a financial protection or financial continuity. In a lot of ways, think of it kind of like supplemental gap coverage, where it's designed to fill in the voids of things that are typically left out and not covered by a cyber insurance policy. So the financial protection we offer here at Cork will cover things like wire transfer fraud and email gift card scams, which are typically not covered by an insurance policy. We will also pay off the cyber insurance deductible. So, say a client has a $2 million cyber insurance policy with a $10,000 deductible. If they had Cork's supplemental coverage, we would be the ones paying off that $10,000 insurance deductible. That way, there's no out of pocket expenses that you have to worry about. But really, the key thing that's going to drive this home is going to be the access to cash. Because we're monitoring all the tools in real time, and if we know that RMM's installed and backups installed, because we're seeing all that data in real time, this gives us the ability to pay out those claims the same day. There's no forensic or audit or investigation or let me look back on your questionnaires like what happened with insurance typically. We already know the answers of how the client's environment looks like, which gives us the ability to pay out the funds pretty much instantly, either to the MSP or the end client or the insurance firm if we're paying off the insurance deductible in an example. So it's all about giving the client or the MSP access to fast cash. And sometimes we pay out the MSP directly because some of the things we covered with our plans are incident response funds. So if it's ever the MSP cleaning up the mess, resetting passwords, resetting MFA tokens, doing the incident response remediation, that's all funds that can be captured instantly through Cork's financial protection. So it gives MSPs the ability to resell financial protection to ensure that their clients are protected and they have supplemental coverage to cyber insurance, while also guaranteeing the MSP that there's funds available if they're the ones doing the work and cleaning up the mess. So it's a win-win.
And why are MSPs interested in like offering these kinds of guarantees now? Why is this emerging as a new area, would you
Yeah,
say?
so it's a good way for an MSP to offer a differentiator because, there's a lot of MSPs out there and a lot of them have the same tools, right? The MSP down the block, they're probably going to be selling Microsoft. The MSP down the block, they're probably going to be selling, an EDR tool, etc. So the successful MSPs that I've seen sell our cyber warranty financial protection solution is actually not necessarily by selling it, but instead including it with their managed services agreement. They approach their client saying, "Hey, Mr. Client, I'm going to sell you Microsoft and I'm going to sell you this vendor for RMM and this vendor for EDR, and I'm going to give you my own team. And I'm so confident in the tools and services that I'm providing you at my MSP that I'm going to put my money where my mouth is and include a $50,000 warranty, guarantee, financial protection, whatever you want to call it, should any of these tools or services fail you." So now they have a similar proposal from MSP number one that includes a lot of tools and services, similar proposal from MSP number two that includes a lot of similar services. But the fact that MSP number two is going to put their money where my mouth is and says, "Hey, if you get hit under our watch, there's money that we're going to pay out here." It acts as a really nice differentiator.
Yep. Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense. And to your point on differentiation, how else, right, does Cork stay differentiated in this noisy space?
Yeah, it's by helping the client remain sticky within their cyber insurance space. So again, cyber insurance is super important. All small businesses should have a cyber insurance policy. Cork, with our financial protection and cyber warranty, we're acting as a band-aid, right? To get you up and running and recovered, before, the hospital cyber insurance can kick in. So what Cork does is we're not just helping MSPs educate their clients on cyber insurance, but we're actually helping them get those cyber insurance policies as well, where we could pre-fill the majority of the questions typically asked in the cyber insurance questionnaire process. And again, if anything falls out in alignment after you get that cyber insurance policy, we're proactively letting you know, saying, "Hey, you know that policy of cyber insurance you bought 4 months ago? Well, if you got hit by an attack today, it wouldn't pay out, and here's why. These two users have MFA turned off, and that one server doesn't have backup running on it anymore."
Love
So
it.
it's all
Yep.
designed to be proactive there to help clients
Very
with.
specific. Well, proactive, but Cork, I love Nick, I love how Cork is looking at essentially like preventative, taking your vitamins, giving you the knowledge not to get hurt. If in the event you get hurt, Cork is there with the band-aid, with the medicine, with the remediation as well.
Well,
So it's kind
we're
of end to end.
Here's your dad joke, right? We're filling your all your cybersecurity gaps and holes with a cork.
There you
There's your
go. There
that's
you
how yeah.
go.
Yeah. Filling those holes and
Awesome.
gaps with a cork. Put a cork in it.
Yeah. Yeah, put a cork in it. So a little bit about, now the channel economy, cybersecurity vendor ecosystems depend heavily on the channel relationships, right? We both know that. Why would you say the MSP channel is so powerful in cybersecurity distribution specifically?
Yeah, because an MSP, whether you're in New York or California, is sharing the same goal, right? They want to secure their customers and stop the bad guys, right? That's ultimately what they want to do. And yes, the MSP in New York and California and the MSP in New York and New Jersey, they are competitors, right? But this is such an awesome community where you'll find peer groups, you'll find an MSP subreddit, you'll find a Slack channel or Discord channel where MSPs are just offering free advice. There's a bunch of Facebook groups as well of, here's how I would approach this issue. Here's how I would tackle that issue. Or if there's a 0-day exploit that's happening through an RMF, the community kind of comes together and is like, screw competition, screw money and all that stuff. Let's focus on problem number one of securing our clients, whether it's my MSP that got impacted or the MSPs down the street. It's a really awesome community where we help each other.
I love it. And now from the vendor side or the client side, I guess what separates vendors that succeed with MSPs from those that fail?
Yeah. So, the not saying that there's bad vendors out there, but some vendors out there, their employees are sales reps. "Hey, Mr. MSP, here's my new shiny object. Buy it." For me and the success that I've had in my career and the success at Datto made it perfectly clear. Oh, yes, on your business card, you're a channel sales executive, a channel account manager. On your business card, you're a sales rep. But when you're on the phone with your customers, you're not a sales rep to them. You're a partner with them. You're a subject matter expert to them saying, "Hey, I'm here to help you improve your business. If you want to buy more stuff from me and give me more money, that's awesome too, but let me focus on improving your business with the product and service that you're representing." So that's something that I would encourage the other vendors in the space to do is don't train sales reps, train subject matter experts, because if your product is awesome, it's going to naturally sell itself, right? But you have to build trust with your customers first.
Yep. Yep. And if a startup wanted to sell to MSPs, right? I mean, security or MSSPs, security naturally maybe untrusting, but innovative nonetheless, early adopters of new technology, where do they tend to go wrong?
Yeah, I would say creating a high barrier to entry is where a lot of vendors might get it wrong. For me, the successful vendors that I've seen and coached in the past would be vendors that have, short-term contracts, or even month-to-month contracts where an MSP, could cancel at any time. When you start mandating 3 to 5 year or renew contracts, that kind of scares some MSPs away. Or if you have a ridiculously high purchase price, like say you are selling a security tool and it's a 5,000 endpoint minimum, to buy that security tool. Well, you're going to alienate a lot of the market because, a lot of MSPs out there, they might only manage a couple hundred endpoints here and there because they focus on small business. So you could
Hmm.
catch a wider net of customers by lowering your barrier to entry. Instead of it being a 5,000 endpoint minimum to get started on your product, maybe it's a 50 endpoint minimum to get started on your product, right? Instead of mandating a 3 year auto renewing contract, make it month to month. Because
Yeah.
again, if your product is awesome, the MSPs are going to stick with you.
Yeah. Make it easy to do business with yourself at the end of the day, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So obviously AI is massive now. Everybody's talking about it. MSPs
Yeah, I
have
never heard of
been,
it.
but like it's just the new thing every single day. I mean, I don't, it's kind of funny, but like in MSPs, you guys have been working in like resource constrained environments for quite some time, right? So where have you seen AI actually helping Cork and maybe more broadly MSPs?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, personally here at Cork, I utilize Gemini a lot just in my day-to-day process. Just for it's like, how can I make this email just a little bit better? How can I make this webinar content a little bit better? My social media posts a little bit better? Or how can I analyze this data to help my client or my MSP sell more? So for me personally, Gemini has been, a huge friend, a huge friend. For MSPs and their end clients, what you're going to start seeing is that there's a lot of new vendors in the space that MSPs can leverage AI not just as a tool, but as a revenue generator for their clients. So what I predict is that MSPs, just like they're selling EDR as a service, they're selling RMM as a service and backup as a service today, and there's a lot of early adopters doing it already, but I see that there's going to be a large growth of MSPs selling AI as a service to their clients, whether it's
Yeah.
helping your clients use AI more efficiently or use AI more safely. So they're using more private AI networks as opposed to public AI networks. That way, if they're uploading sensitive information, it's not getting shared in a giant pool.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. And at the end of the day, you think this is all, I mean, AI in general, you think it's reducing security risk or is it creating more attack surface?
Ooh, that's a good question. I mean, it's like, one door closes and another door opens, right?
Yeah.
Like AI is doing a lot of great things. It's helping the good guys become stronger, and stay ahead of the curve with anti-phishing detection and things of that nature. But at the same time, AI is also being used by the bad guys too. So it's a wash, in my opinion. And again, this is just me, right? Take it with a grain of
Yeah.
salt. I do not I am not the smartest guy in the room. There's plenty of guys smarter out there, but yeah, take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah. So, Nick, what about a technology you're excited about now? Maybe something that's shown, outsized ROI or something that's really, you speak Gemini, you talked about a lot of tools. I mean, can you name something you're uh genuinely excited about, as a tool?
Other than Cork, right? Selfish plug there. No,
Of course.
No, I mean, there's a lot of great looking companies on the horizon, when it comes to tackling the AI problem for sure. Like I know that a couple MSPs or that I know have been recently setting up with a product called Hats AI. And again, they don't pay me to say this, but I worked with some of that team over there in the past. when I was at Scout, which was an XDR vendor. But again, they're just tackling a new problem and a new product segment in the MSP space, focusing on AI. Like if you were a vendor and you're like, hey, I'm going to build a new RMM tool, I'm going to build a new EDR tool. It's like, great, but like there's a lot of tools out there that already solve that problem. So when you're about to launch a product and you're the only one doing it, that could be scary because you don't have competitors. You're not sure if there's a product market fit, but you could also be the market innovator. You know, Ta- I like what Hats AI is doing in the AI section for MSPs, just like I like what Cork is doing for MSPs when it comes to security auditing and financial protection and cyber insurance. So something that I get asked often here at Cork is, all right, send me a battle card of who you compete with. And the answer is we don't have a competitor right now. Whereas when I was selling Datto back in the day, there was plenty of backup competitors. So very exciting times to be at a vendor that, doesn't necessarily have competition. It's scary because there's a lot of market education we have to do versus replacing an incumbent solution. But it drives us to innovate and listen to the feedback of our MSPs.
Well, respect to a builder that's forging through in a new industry. And how much of that is how much of that differentiation do you think is really the automated risk intelligence, right? The understanding of what's happening in the environment and kind of providing things on the fly, remediating and providing suggestions on the fly as vulnerabilities are exposed.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely something that's been helping us out here at Cork grow for sure. Think of us kind of like the check engine light on the car. We're the ones that are telling you, hey, you're going to want to pull over to the side of the road and get this fixed before you get an accident, before something bad happens, before you have to use car insurance or cyber insurance. Pull over to the side of the road and let's get this thing fixed, whether it's MFA being turned off or EDR not being installed or RMM not running on a particular machine. It's all about pulling your vehicle over to the side of the road safely. Let's get you back on the road so you can go on that road trip without having to worry about, any accidents, knock on wood.
Yeah, yeah, great analogy. Nick, what about goals for you this year and Cork? What do you look to do in the next, say, 12 months?
Yeah, so we just launched on the Pax8 marketplace. So that's been super exciting. We launched there in early 2026. You know,
Congrats.
yeah, being in startup mode, the last 2 years have been absolutely, super, super fun. I mean, we're growing 2000% year over year, which is super, super exciting. But a lot of that growth has been in North America, when we still have a ton of room to grow in North America, but I think by the end of 2026, we're going to be starting to open some more doors internationally and in Europe and Australia and the Middle East. So that's going to be exciting as well. But my short-term goals are really just to work with as many managed service providers in North America as possible, whether that's virtually or in person on the road, right? We're going to be at a bunch of trade shows this year. You'll see me at the PAX8 Beyond conference in Salt Lake City in June 2026. So, yeah. And, at Cork, we don't discriminate. If you're an MSP that's a one-man shop with 100 endpoints, we'll work with you. If you're an MSP that's private equity backed that has, 500 employees and 40,000 endpoints, we'll work with you too.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. Lofty goals, and it sounds like, the winds are behind your sail here. Hopefully you'll keep going with the at the pace that you're going at. I love it. Awesome. Well, Nick, where can customers find you if they need more information?
Yeah, so I'm very big on LinkedIn. You can find me linkedin.com/wolfnick. That's for my personal LinkedIn. And then you could find more information about Cork, or if you want to book a demo with Cork, we're at corkinc.com, CORK Inc.com. And me or my team will be happy to facilitate a demo for your MSP or MSSP. And as always, we're also available on the Pax8 marketplace. So if you're a Pax8 customer, you could check out today and get a trial through Pax8. So really, however we could best serve you, we're happy to participate in your conversation.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Nick. So fascinating look at how cybersecurity risk, insurance, and the MSP ecosystem are really converging these days. For anyone, for anyone running a business today, the takeaway is quite simple. Cybersecurity isn't just a technology problem anymore. It's a financial risk management problem. So, Nick, thank you for joining us on the Vault podcast. Hope to see
Not a
you soon.
problem. Thank you for having me on. Till next time.
Thank you. Thank you.